This multifamily project is going up right now in the city of Longmont, Colorado. It has some very cool design and specification features which the performance consultants, Cody and Lisa Farmer at Mainstream Corporation, and the developer, Gary Kinsey, are really focused on getting the thermal envelope, that's the air tightness and the insulation values, to be far closer to the passive house performance than mere building code. Let's hear their whys, and let's go check out this great building under construction right now. Mainstream Corporation's office is a converted barn in the shadow of Long's Peak. It's turned into a passive house compliant building because of a sealed envelope and a mechanical ventilation system that purifies the air. Find out just how quickly the air is purified later in the program. The two of you are doing some amazing things when it comes to making buildings more airtight, encouraging the whole passive house standard. Why are you leaders in moving this forward?
I think Lisa and I, founded Mainstream to make things better, to fix things that we saw that were wrong. And so the why is simply because we see that the current building stock is wrong, and because we have kids, we're building for the future for them.
You guys have several projects, but we're focusing on this under construction Greenspire project.
Yeah, the owner's amazing, and it's a project that lit up Mainstream's interest level.
When I met Cody, he enjoys this, and when he saw what I was doing, it just excited him. He was just all for it.
Finally, we had somebody who was receptive to the science, who asked the right questions, who was doing it for the right reasons.
On this scale.
Right.
Probably something that really made me work on it hard is I told a lady at our church that it was impossible to build a 450 square foot unit that was just, the restrictions would be so great and the expense would be so great that it just was impossible. She got a project through the city called the Micah Homes that are affordable, through a group called the In-Between, which provided that type of housing.
Transitional from homeless into some sort of housing?
Right. So she did so much to help affordable housing. She broke the mold because mine are 300 square feet, and when she started, the city required 450. So she has helped, and so this is my, this was something that I needed to do for her.
Is this project going to help people coming from homelessness into transitional, or is this meant to be more of a market rate,
We are tied in with the city with 10 affordable units that meet, that we have to meet certain requirements. But because of the way they're designed, only 300 square feet, they are all well below the city's requirements. And that is the secret to affordability. Is its size.
It's the size.
Well, at the original, 2.5, 3 years ago, 450 down to 300, that is, that's 30% smaller. And that lowers the cost 30% for rent. Its size is a factor. I didn't have 44 of these built without knowing what one looked like. So I built one in my basement. I built this unit in my basement.
That's awesome.
Because you just don't want 44 of them there.
And so you tried it out how it would feel to live in that, right?
Yes, yeah. So, we had several principles. It had to be viable economically. And investment-wise, it needed to really do something about the homelessness. And to me, it had to be 21st century. The code is so far behind, and technology is moving so fast ahead.
I have to interject is that you, at one time, were a building inspector, correct? So you know the code really well.
I spent 11 years in code review and stuff like that, and building inspection, and it just wasn't. It's not keeping up. So I wanted a 21st century building and renewable energy. I do not want to face my grandchild knowing the mess that I've left him. I'm responsible. No, you're responsible.
We're responsible.
We're all responsible, and we've, I've got a few years left. Maybe I can correct a little bit of it.
Now, before meeting Cody and then Lisa, had you heard of Passive House before, or had you not even heard of that previously?
Not Passive House.
Right.
Passive House has its own modeling software. Passive House Planning Package is how it started. Internationally, they still use it. And then with all the climate zones in the United States Passive House Institute created Woofy Passive. So that's the software program that I've...
What does WUFI stand for again?
Oh,
it's
good
WUFI.
Yes.
I'm sorry, but it's in German. It's in German, right?
Yeah, it's probably safer if we just spell it and leave it at that. It's a hygrothermal model that's parametric and is attached to the elements of Woofy Passive Modeling Program.
Okay. So it does what other manual J softwares do as far as heat load calculations, but it's more accurate. It takes air tightness seriously. It incorporates internal heat gains. A lot of just, when you get down to the micro loads, this is the software that we should be using.
She likes gritty and language and spreadsheets and fancy graphs, and she's very good at it. But beyond that, she gives our clients an opportunity to just ask anything they want about their building. For example, what if we switch the insulation because this insulation is more friendly to the environment?
Right.
Or this insulation is cheaper and I can use it recycled form.
Right.
And all those questions can happen on a phone call away.
So Lisa, you've told me rules of thumb for Passive House, the idea of an R40 underneath, an R50 on the walls, R60 for the ceiling or attic. For Greenspire, you're really close to that, but what'd you end up using, and then why?
We are very close. We're about R38, where the floor meets the crawl space.
Nice.
And then the walls, we did push for a little bit more rigid insulation than we got, so we landed at a R30. Okay. We have 2 inches of rigid foam on our framed walls.
Nice.
And then the roof itself is a R60 as well. And then each of the units is airtighted itself from each other.
Trying to stop the smell of people's food drifting over to the place next door.
Yes.
Very nice.
Lots of design meetings taking those details into specific consideration.
This team has already done more on this airtight detail than you'll see on the average construction site. We'll come back in here and button it up even tighter because, we want Passive House airtightness in each of these 300 square foot units. So a quick air barrier inspection that Mainstream would do would be to come in and see what is the continuity of the air barrier. And that means, is everything connected properly on all 6 sides of the building or the area that we're in. So move on over here. We use Proclima vapor open tapes, and the reason is because people sweat and they breathe and they cook, and so we don't want anything getting trapped in our walls.
And then the walls, you got 2 inches of rigid, so XPS, is that correct, on the outside?
EPS.
EPS, okay, yeah, so expanded polystyrene on the outside, so
Yes.
good. So that's like about an R8, is
Yeah.
that okay, on the outside? Then what do you have in the wall cavity?
Cellulose.
I think the cellulose argument's a really good one. And that's something that can change in the field. I mean, it's common that as Passive House will spec cellulose or something and we'll end up with blown-in fiberglass or something.
Okay.
We like cellulose because it's a recycled material and it's very anti-rodent and buggy.
I agree, yeah.
But we'll see what that...
Fiberglass, rodents don't have a problem with, but cellulose, they don't like it, the borate that's on there, yeah. So
Yeah.
that's good, yeah.
But dense packing it in, then it'll surround all the wiring and everything, which is why, it's very tempting on this, you'll see bats in normal situations, go in and slap them in, but then you have little air pockets, and that's the other part of our science is we don't want any air pockets in any of our assemblies. This is how we do it.
Yep, that's excellent.
And then for the windows, actually.
Yes, yeah, for the windows.
We started
So
with
you've,
Alpine in the design process, but then now we have Gherkin windows in there. They are less than 0.2. This one's 0.5. It's fixed. The operable one
1.5, yeah.
is
0.17. Those are excellent windows. Like Energy Star in our area requires about a 0.3
Yes.
approximately. So a much
less
better
than
window.
0.2 is where we're targeted.
We went from a fiberglass to a UPVC, and the budget was significant enough. The other thing that we
That's
learned...
for the framing of the window?
Yeah,
okay.
UPVC versus Alpine's fiberglass.
And do you know, with all of this, we were almost certifiable for Passive House.
Yeah.
The heat load is the one that I kept fighting, and I couldn't really nail down how to lock it in. But even the primary source energy,
really
we
close.
meet the threshold for Passive House criteria under 6,200 kilowatt hour per person per year.
Right.
And that I will attribute to the solar hot water.
Okay. One thing I'd like to ask was about a technical detail in the project, the solar water heating parts of it. Some people think that's an older technology, but boy, it's working for your project. It's going to work for your project, as I understand it.
Well, you're correct. It was old technology, and I'm kind of, it's old technology. The inspiration came from the fact that the number one heat load in those units is hot water.
Okay.
Now, I also knew that I could use renewable energy through the city and my own solar, and I could just pay for the resistance heat. But when you started looking at the hot water that comes out of the shower and goes down the drain and is gone, was just amazing. It just way too much, and so we attempted to recover that. There's no designs. You have to think it up yourself. And then again, through Cody and Lisa, the solar hot water, solar thermal, and when we got the information on that.
And so we introduced Laurent Malon
Yep.
from Capital Solar.
Solar.
He's a great French accent. He's a super intelligent, wonderful guy.
Yep.
He was perfect for the project.
Yep.
And honestly, that introduction was like exactly what Gary needed was, hey, this is that cherry that's going to take this project from an almost to something else.
Yeah, and that's what's beautiful is the pairing of a great envelope, and then simpler mechanical systems, and then bring renewables in. Like you said, is really what helps on that carbon footprint side. Energy use per person side. So that's beautiful.
So this is a huge negotiation of using like off-the-shelf, cheap resistance heat. But wait, if we go this cheap, we can afford this huge solar thermal system
Right.
that's going to do all the heavy lifting anyways.
Yeah, so that's a great way, and it takes smart people, educated people working with smart, curious, educated builders and developers, to make that happen. One of the smart ways Gary is preparing for the future of electric utility policies is by placing demand control meter boxes in each unit.
In the future, every place will have a demand meter. Throughout all units, each unit has one of these. It will shed loads to keep the total demand below a certain level and probably save as much as $2,000 a month.
Well, one of the fun things we think we found on this one, we go back and forth trying to get it to be this certified passive house building, this apartment building, and it fought back. The resistance was hard and the force was windy and all this stuff. But what we learned was that multifamily is a lot easier to take passive house to certifications. Every time we have the opportunity to take one to the mat or to take one full passive, it's always like, well,
We run it through the gauntlet.
Yeah, run it through the
Full
gauntlet.
ringer.
This one has bothered me just because, you want it to be certified. Colorado needs it,
We need a multifamily.
we would like to be the company that helps make that possible. But on the same token, it's an amazing building. It's almost passive. It's got all the big passive elements in it.
It's going to serve a big need.
I'm dying to do another one because there's just so many things I'd like to do just a little bit better and get to that passive house and a little past. Because I see that just with a little bit of thought, you could hit that every time easy.
Yeah.
And I'm excited about that. But not till this is done. I gotta get this one, on the books.
It's amazing what purpose can do to you in the morning to get out of bed and chase it. And I will tell you that when you're in a passive house or you're in a space like this where it's very comfortable and even and it nourishes your soul, it's purpose. Some people find purpose in money, some in family. I certainly do in family. But beyond that, it's making the world a better place, fixing something that is broke.
Remember when we wondered just how quickly Mainstream's passive house office purified the air? Let's let Cody tell us.
Almost half the room is purified within 1 hour without hearing it.
Yeah.
Thanks for bringing that up.
No,
Yeah.
it's wonderful. I hope these stories have truly inspired you as much as they've inspired me. I look forward to seeing how Cody, Lisa, and Gary's project comes together and revisiting them for an update after residents have moved in. I also look forward to meeting and interviewing other creative designers and builders and developers who apply the cutting-edge designs shared in our videos to create more and more regenerative structures until they become the norm rather than the exception. Also watch the technical side of each project in our accompanying video and see the documentation on the Heart of a Building website. We look forward to sharing more stories like these because buildings are one of the very few things we build which last longer than a human lifetime. Many of us understand the first half of the equation, building a profitable structure which provides shelter. But exploring the other half, the why behind the design, blends our hearts with the wisdom of our minds to create buildings of the future today. See you on our next episode.